Hey, what's up? How's it going? It's Rob and welcome to Leave Curious. So when it comes to doing a bit of good for the planet, carbon offsetting is a controversial topic. And I think it's controversial because it's a little bit misunderstood. In today's video, I want to tell you exactly what carbon offsetting is, give you some examples of it, and explain how those examples work. But fundamentally, I want to address its role in helping us fight the climate crisis, because it most certainly has a part to play. On paper, it sounds great. Excessive amounts of carbon caused by human behaviour is bad for the environment, so being able to offset that damage would be great, wouldn't it? So it's a like for like, right? So surely if we just invest all of our money into carbon offsets, we'll be able to save the planet? Well, no. Not really. The actual definition of carbon offsetting goes like this: the action or process of compensating for carbon dioxide emissions arising from industrial or other human activity by participating in schemes designed to make equivalent reductions of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Alright, okay, cool. So what exactly are some of these processes and how are they designed to cut the equivalent carbon from our atmosphere? Regenerative agroforestry. This means creating forests upon degraded land, restoring it to pull carbon from the atmosphere. Oh, and it's got the occasional grazing pig doing its thing too. So this is currently happening successfully in Scotland, but what makes regenerative agroforestry successful is lots of careful planning and consideration from experts. It's essentially all about putting the right tree in the right place. The risks using trees to sequester carbon are that they can die, be cut down, or burn in forest fires. Even if successful, it's important to not have a monoculture, a single species creating a biodiversity desert. That's why the right trees in the right place is so crucial to successfully offset carbon. Clean cooking fuel alternatives. In Uganda, there are more than 1 million displaced people from South Sudan and Eastern Congo. A big problem was access to clean cooking fuel. And traditionally, open fires are used and they're fueled by wood from the environment, which is not only unsustainable, but it also releases more carbon than the new alternative. A process has been engineered that turns agricultural waste such as rice husks, groundnut shells and maize cobs into briquettes that can be burned cleanly as a blue flame. As well as preventing wood from being taken and releasing less carbon, the briquettes when burnt can be used as biochar, which is like a clean coal, which is actually sold back by the families and used elsewhere. This type of project is impressive, but it's only successful if it's made accessible to everybody in the area. Tech-enabled rainforest protection. It's one thing planting a tree, but it's even more important to protect the existing ones. Rainforests are carbon sinks. Annually, tropical rainforests absorb 1.4 billion metric tons of carbon. That's a lot, and the enemy to these rainforests are illegal logging. So funding the protection through the use of satellites, drones and video technology can quickly identify illegal activities. But more than this, it supplies the local people with the right mapping and communication technology to inform the state about encroachment from illegal logging. Community tree planting. Across East Africa, the local communities, as well as the climate, are benefiting from tree planting. Farmers are educated on the benefits and shown how to plant and care for trees. Money goes to paying the farmers to maintain the trees. So as the trees grow, they offer the people fruit, they offer the people fuel, they sequester carbon, but it is essential that the trees are protected. That's why the farmers are paid to maintain the trees into maturity. And when this is done on scale, the social and the climate benefits are just there to be seen. Biochar in California. This project prevents the spread of forest fires throughout California's old-growth forests. These forests are vital to the climate, but due to the threat from forest fires, they're now at risk. The project prevents the spread of fire by removing flammable deadwood, which is then turned to biochar, which is a stable form of carbon. The biochar is then mixed with fertilizer and then sold to farmers. Now, this project is easily quantified because biochar is essentially 100% carbon, which means it can just be weighed and its impact can be recorded. So, there's a lot of good going on, isn't there? Not just with respect to the climate and capturing carbon, but also for people too. This is just a reminder again that when we do good for the environment, it also benefits us too. But we have two more questions which need answering. Firstly, when and how should we use carbon offsetting in the fight against climate change? And secondly, how can we ensure that a project is verified and that our money is going to work and ensure that the carbon is actually offset? So to help us understand the role of carbon offsetting in the fight against the climate crisis, I want to use the analogy of a battle, a fight between two sides. In this context, I want you to see us as people who are fighting for good, saving the planet and its natural systems. On the other side is the enemy, which is global warming, excessive carbon dioxide release to the atmosphere by certain actions and decisions that we make. In every battle, each participant has an arsenal of weapons. In the case of our enemy, arguably the biggest and hardest hitting weapons are that of air travel or how we power our homes or cars. The enemy's smaller hitting weapons include how long and how hot we shower, or perhaps the way we consume our media, whether if we go out and buy a non-recycled newspaper or if we just consume it online. Right, so these are the sidearms against us. These are the smaller weapons, the lesser contributors. Right, so this is all sounding a bit one-sided. What are our weapons in this fight against global warming? Our biggest and most hardest hitting weapon is cutting our carbon footprint altogether. It's saying no to those big contributors. If you just don't get on the plane, then there's no problem. In the context of this battle, not doing something is better than doing it and then looking to make amends for it after. But inevitably, we are going to be getting on that plane, aren't we? We just are. And this is where carbon offsetting comes into play. It's our trusty sidearm that we can whip out and use when necessary. So now, arguably the most important element of carbon offsetting is knowing where to invest our money. How do we know that projects are credible? The answer to this question is to find a reputable and responsible source to offset that carbon. And this is where I want to introduce you to a company called Wren. Just before we dive into it, I want to give you full disclosure and let you know that although this video isn't sponsored, I am in affiliation with Wren, in that if you subscribe and sign up to Wren via the link in the description, I will receive a commission which ultimately supports the channel, which means I can get to doing this full time, which is honestly awesome. But let me tell you all about Wren. Wren are a company that offer carbon offsetting to the everyday person, you and me. Even I've signed up to it. By this point, you know what carbon offsetting is, how it works, and when to use it. The next question is, how do we know that Wren is a reputable organisation? Well, do you remember those projects I spoke about near the start of the video? They're all Wren's carbon offsetting projects. What I really love about Wren is that they're just extremely transparent. Each project is broken down, the carbon offset itself, along with a breakdown of where the money goes. I strongly urge you to check it out, and please do of course use the link in the description to support the channel. And look, ultimately, whether if you believe it or not, we are in this together, which means that we're all responsible. And look, whether if carbon offsetting just does a little bit of good to capture some carbon or to push us towards a greener culture, in my mind, it's worth doing. Thanks for watching, leave curious.